Hello everyone, and welcome to this IFST Northern Branch webinar today. The webinar is Digitalising a Food Factory, a UK manufacturing demonstrator for decarbonisation and gamification. And my name is Wayne Martindale. I'm the Honorary Secretary for the IFST. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for being here. We'll keep to the hour, and this is delivered by the Northern Branch of the IFST, of which I am a member of that committee. I would also like to really say that joining a committee and joining the board of the IFST is a really great thing to do. And if you're interested in trustee roles or becoming a member of the branch or special interest group committees, please ask me or any member that's involved with committee and branch and SIG work. Please do. The important reason for delivering the webinar today is really it can be summed up in three words: digitalisation, gamification, and decarbonisation, and of course artificial intelligence. Now, so there's four words there, sorry, but those four words conjure up a lot of cloudy and nebulous definitions. And one of the things that the webinar is going to do today with our speaker is really cut through all that indecisiveness and show you how these things can be demonstrated. So AI, gamification, and decarbonisation. You're going to come away from this hour hopefully seeing how these things can be applied, defined, and demonstrated in a manufacturing environment. A few points on housekeeping now. First of all, the webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the IFST's webinar hub. Feel free to make comments and ask questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A tab, not the chat tab. The chat tab has been disabled and we will be looking at the questions and answers tab. So please put questions there. We would like to see as many as possible. You can also upvote questions if you like them particularly, and hopefully they will get noticed by me, Tom, and we will be able to put those to the front of the queue. So that's pretty much the housekeeping over and done with. I'd now like to introduce our speaker, Tom Hollands, who first of all is an honorary fellow of the IFST. And Tom is also a technical director at Rayner Foods in Chelmsford in Essex. But Tom will say more about Rayner's, of course, because that's where the digitalisation and gamification demonstrator is actually based. A little bit about Tom. I've worked with Tom since 2017, and around about 2018, we wrote an article in the Food Science and Technology Journal of the Institute. You can go back and look at that. It's called Breadwinner. And in that article, we carbon footprinted a couple of sandwiches and we asked a few questions. We wrote that article with Richard Marshall. And that article raised many questions that have kind of grown and pretty much are at the core of what you're going to see in the next half an hour or so. Tom is an innovator, written many articles across many subjects: digitalisation, growing food in space, as well as all the practical stuff like how do we implement AI in the manufacturing environment. So a really exciting talk ahead of us. And really, not to delay things any longer, I'd like to give the floor to Tom and the presentation, which will prove to be a really quite novel and innovative presentation.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. Just so everyone's aware, hopefully you got your sound on. There will be some clips of videos being shown throughout the presentation, and the volume is on loud, so just in case. But yeah, thank you very much, Wayne, for that brilliant introduction. My name's Tom Hollins. I'm the Innovation and Technical Director at Rainer Foods. Rainer Foods is an employee-owned business in EOT. We manufacture a range of sandwiches or food-to-go items that go into the public and private sector. And we have a good sustained history of innovation within the food industry and also digitalisation as well. I'm here to talk to you about a project called S3 that stands for Smart People, Smart Process, Smart Factory. And it was a £2.5 million project that was half funded by Innovate UK. And the elevator pitch is something like this. We've turned our factory into a computer game to help reduce carbon emissions, and in turn, reward people, teams, individuals for their activities to enable to help us reduce those emissions. And we've had quite an array of different advanced technologies which we have. I promise you, I'm not going to talk tech with you. I'm going to talk to you about the benefits this technology is delivering to us as I speak. The presentation in front of you is the first time it's being delivered in this sense. So yeah, any feedback, very, very happy. Please send that afterwards. But effectively, you're going to get a national demonstrator presentation. At the end of November, we launched the national demonstrator here in Chelmsford, and we invited our competitors, our supply chain, and other food manufacturers to come and see this technology and in an interactive demonstration. And there'll be more of these events planned for later on this year if you would like to attend. To our knowledge, this is the world's first initiative to substantially reduce carbon emissions and cost savings in near real time using gamification. And I hope you enjoy the presentation. Now, as I promised, I'm not going to go deep into the tech, but here's the anatomy of the technology that we've used throughout our whole facility. I'll give you a one-liner explainer about each of them before we move on to the main show, just to help set the scene. In the middle, you have the RTLS, which stands for a real-time locational system. This is a virtual mesh that covers the entire enterprise. And if you have a game link or a tag, this allows you to geographically locate people and assets anywhere throughout the whole facility. And if you're measuring the process that people are working on and you know where that person is, then you can attribute them points. And we go into this later. But the real-time locational system is the heart of S3. And connected to that, we have submetering. If you're not aware that submetering is, this basically measures the amount of energy used for a particular process, for a machine, or even a production line. And we've submetered our entire enterprise. We have designed a number of apps, such as a manufacturing app and a health and safety app. We have 3 use cases of AI. 2 of them are being used day to day. And we'll go into that later. We have a lot of sensors. We have a gaming app called Xanadu, and you'll see a video of that. We have a camera detection system, and this allows us to identify wrong product in the wrong packaging, which accounts for 80% of all recalls and withdrawals in our industry. We have push notifications, which sends messages to people's phones, text messages, or emails to define people if defined parameters are met. We have an auto time and attendance, which automatically calculates where people are, which workstations they've been at, and what their hourly salary would be. We have a door entry system. We've modified our ERP system, our enterprise resource platform. We've made CO2e a metric of this business, and we've managed to map the embedded carbon in all our ingredients and all our products. And then because it's digital technology and digital fusion, we've done a lot of integration here as well. Our partner Software Imaging would say to us that they've created a giant plug socket, so you can have different bits of technology plugged into that. And you can take that plug socket and you can apply the same plug to different manufacturing sectors as well as food manufacturing as well. Just a word on the other members of our consortium for the S3 project. Rainer Foods, with their lead organisation. Software Imaging, we're our other industrial partner. We have the University of Lincoln helping to support the CO2e and energy elements of the project. And we had the University of Cambridge, the Institute for Manufacturing, that was supporting us for the gamification. Moving on. You're going to see an interactive demonstration of the technology in use. Why? Because if I could take you on a tour of the factory, I could point out the installations and I can show you the physical stuff, but that doesn't really explain the benefits and how it all comes together. That's why there's an interactive demonstration. You'll see a schematic of our food factory, and I will take you around a tour of our food factory, and you can see the technology and how it's benefited different parts of the enterprise. And it will show how the technology is used, and most importantly, what the benefits are. This is Bob. Bob is sitting on the game link, a tag you could refer to it as. And Bob will be going around the schematic of our factory. He'll start the shift and he'll move around to the different areas. You'll see a video with each of those areas and you'll see the technology in action. And then you also see some tokens or benefits shown here. And this gives you a physical representation of the benefit that it's delivering to the factory. And just a word on this, the CO2e icon token you can see is talking about our ability to either reduce emissions or calculate them accurately. We have learned throughout the whole of this project, if we are decarbonising, we are reducing costs. And that's a key element of the gamification. Every pound that our system saves, 20 pence of that goes in to fund the game. You've got a stopwatch there that represents better efficiency. You have a rubbish bin there, waste. That's just not food waste. That represents all the 7 key types of waste that you have in food manufacturing. An acronym called Tim Woods, if you want to Google that later. Waste of things like skill, things like overproduction, even waste of energy. Data. We are generating a lot of data. We're effectively getting 10 geographical signals from every single asset or game link anywhere in our enterprise every microsecond. And we're generating a lot of positional data, as well as data about the energy we use and food waste we're generating, and a number of other things as well. You'll see energy. That's our ability to measure and reduce it. And importantly, health and safety, when we're able to generate or help facilitate safer working environments from using the technology. Now, let's start the game. Here's Bob. And Bob's going to go to the factory entrance because he's about to start his day. So Bob's arrived for the day. Straight away through the real-time locational system, we can geolocate Bob. We know where he is. Very useful for fire evacuation, night shift, or lone working. We can automatically calculate his time and attendance, whereabouts Bob is in the factory, what he's done. We've got an automated integrated entry system here. So it allows Bob to move through it because Bob has the game link. We've managed to integrate our personnel system with the real-time locational system. So we can generate push notifications for critical missing skills, such as machine setters or forklift truck operators. Because if we know we're missing a key skill before the shift starts, we can reconfigure quicker. And we know that any interruption to our manufacturing plan generates inefficiencies, and inefficiencies generate emissions and cost. And so if we know we've got a problem in front of us, we can reconfigure and mitigate the risk of the additional costs and additional emissions just by the integration that we've done with our core systems. But this also allows us to manage by exception as well. We're generating a lot of data, and we can't afford to pay people to try and look to all the different data, try and trend it. So we have to automate that. And that's what the push notifications with the management by exception allows us to do. In totality, this saves a significant amount of administration time. Adjusting payroll at the moment, or previously it was a very manual process. We can accurately calculate workstation interventions. And more importantly, we can deliver early warning of key skills gap to reduce the risk of downtime and reduce the risk of inefficiencies as well. Now, Bob's going to move on to our warehousing operation. Our 80% of the energy that we use on our site is spent keeping our factory cold, keeping our food cold, and keeping some of our ingredients frozen prior to use. Let's see that. Okay, so through the submetering, we get granular energy uses, not only telling us how much energy we're using, how much embedded carbon is in that energy, but also the cost for each of the chamber. We're able to put asset tags on the doors so we can tell if they're open or closed. We know that open doors generate additional, require heavy loads, and it increases the amount of energy we're using as well. Through the real-time locational system, we're also able to smart track pallets or key consignments. Through the real-time locational system, we can create digital representations of processes, and we can identify who took the consignment of goods in, what temperature they were done, how long they were out of refrigeration, how long the doors were left open for, how quickly they were put in it. And this gives us defined and granular operated process traceability, which we can create into a KPI in our gamification. We're also able to identify repetitive high emission behaviors, such as leaving the doors open. And we can then provide retraining and education to those colleagues to help reduce the risk of it happening again. One of the AIs we deployed was looking for insights in our refrigeration, and we were able to optimize some of our defrosting cycles. Most of our deliveries happen in the morning, so that's when our defrosting should happen, rather than it happening later on during the day. And in totality, this helps us to reduce the amount of wasted energy, become more efficient, and reduce the amount of emissions that we're generating as well. Now, Bob's going to move on to our ambient warehousing operation, where there's a lot of forklift truck movements. Now, maintaining a safe working practice is absolutely fundamental. Through the real-time locational system, we can track forklift truck movements. And because our colleagues have game links, we can quickly identify which parts in our factory where there's near misses. We can also, through the integration that we have with our personnel system and the key skills, identify if a forklift truck driver is attempting to go onto the road and they don't have a license. Because if they were to go on the road without a license, it exposes the business to unlimited liability. But because we're able to integrate directly within our forklift truck, we can actually stop it before it ever leaves the premises and mitigate the risk further. Through the real-time locational system, we have process traceability, and this helps us for people that are alone working, and it can give us push notification for serious infringements, such as a forklift truck driver tried to go on the road, or a near miss happening in our ambient warehousing operation, or even, as we're going to later, a person that's fallen on the floor and not got up. Through the health and safety app that we've developed, this pre-populates the investigation form, because through the real-time locational system, we know when the accident happened, who was around there, what time it happened. And in totality, this helps build us a strong due diligence defense and reduce the risk of riddles happening, as well as enhance health and safety. Now, Bob's going to move on to our bar market room. If 20% of the energy that we use in our factory is spent keeping our process nice and cold, then where's the other 20%? Well, half of that, or 10% of our total energy, is spent bar marking bread. And every single food manufacturer has a high energy operation. This just happens to be ours. So this is a brilliant example of multi-tech integration. Not only do we get granular energy and CO2 consumption, we know which operator is operating the machine. We can tell if they've been trained. If they haven't been trained, the machine can switch off. If they walk away and leave it unattended, then it can also automatically shut down. In totality, this helps us identify poor behaviors for retraining or good behaviors for celebrating and encouragement. This provides us a strong health and safety enhancement. This allows us to reduce the amount of energy that we're wasting and for the whole process to be more efficient. Before we integrated this bit of technology into the S3 platform, this machine was often left on for a prolonged period of time, even though when it wasn't needed. And it was responsible for a significant amount of unnecessary cost. Through the integration, we've managed to highly optimize this process, reduce the amount of energy, reduce the risk of mistakes happening, reduce the risk of accidents happening, as well as, more importantly, decarbonising. So I've spoken to you a few times about the gamification and the KPI. Let's see what this gamification is and how it all pulls together. The gamification has been a significant enabler for this project and a change management tool, because effectively, by playing the game, we provide meaningful information to the workforce, totally bespoke KPIs, individual KPIs, business-wide KPIs, and process KPIs for different parts of the factory. And they're all based on generating efficiencies, reducing waste, and decarbonising as well. And we can change and adjust those KPIs as the game grows and develops. And what this has allowed us to do is align the needs of the individual and the teams with incentives to generate better efficiencies and reduce waste. Every pound that the system saves, 20 pence of that goes in to fund the game. The two top prizes in the game are 2 raffle tickets or 2 prizes for £16,500. And then there's up to £1,000 contribution to a family holiday, up to £500 contribution for a family meal. There's up to £200 contribution for training. And I don't mean training within the workplace. I'm talking about doing a course outside of work, like abseiling or canoeing. There's £20 vouchers, £40 vouchers, £10, £100 vouchers, and even £200 donations to charity. That's on the financial side. On the non-financial side, there's additional days off. There's a carpool, dedicated car park, or even just a pat on the back. All these incentives came from the workforce. They told us what they wanted, and we pulled it and formed these rewards as part of the platform. So every single member of our business earns green points, and depending on which part of the business they work in, depends which particular individual other KPIs which they can compete against climate change for. And this is becoming quite a distinct USP for attracting talent. It's helped us to reduce operator churn and the associated cost of recruitment and quality in churning operators. This gives us daily business-wide check-in for a dashboard and communicates to every single member of the work through the Xanadu app the points they got yesterday and where they can earn more points tomorrow. It emphasizes what's important to the employees. And we've tried to align what's good for the employee, is good for the business, and it's good for the planet. And we think the gamification facilitates that change and keeps people engaged and wanting to go and excel and work together more, because we want them to get more points, because the more points they get, the more we're decarbonising and the more costs that we're saving as well. And all of that falls to the bottom line. Now, we're going to move on from the staff room and we're going to go into the high care changing room, which is going to demonstrate some of the other health and safety benefits. Okay. So within every game link we have has an accelerometer, and this accelerometer can tell which direction a person's moving in, what speed they're moving, and also whereabouts they are on the y-axis. The second use case that we have of an AI is we taught an AI to recognize what a trip, slip, or fall signal looks like. We done this by putting gym mats in the high care changing room and asking our staff to fall over. And this was led by the health and safety team. And this allowed us to train the AI to recognize the signal. So now if there's a slip, trip and fall, it generates a signal to tell us where it happened. That information gets sent to the health and safety team. It generates a measle map and it allows us to quickly assess what's causing the slippage. Is there a problem with the footwear? Has the tread gone? Is there a slippery floor, or is there fat that's been left on the floor, or something else that allows us to target that area rapidly and try and reduce the risk of mistakes happening? Now, through the real-time locational system, we can also create subzones and main zones, and we can create digital twins of processes. And if something is locked in a geographical space, like you saw in the video, the boots are in one part of the room, the overalls in a different part of the room, the wash hand basin is in different hands in the room, then you can create a process map, and you can tell when people don't follow the correct process, such as washing their hands after they put their boots on, or washing their hands before they go into production space. And then you can create incentives around that. So if people follow the process sensibly every day as they're supposed to, then they generate more points. An important thing to emphasize about the game is you cannot lose points in the game. You cannot earn points, but you'll never lose points. But for good behavior, you can multiply points, because we want consistency in good behavior, because that's where we're decarbonized rather than peaks and troughs. Now, as well as the AI detecting slips, trips, and falls, it can send push notifications for significant breaches. And there's also a button that can be pressed. And if that button is pressed, it can summon first aiders through the push notification, not for them to run to the room, but to walk with purpose and to see whether first aid is needed. And this also, through the AI, allows us to help trend slips, trips, and falls, and also trend in for specified track processes, such as people getting into the PPE or washing their hands in the correct place as well. And in totality, this is helping us to not only reduce cost, reducing the risk of food safety incidents, which generate a lot of emissions, where through doing this, we can save a lot of bandwidth and time, and also wasted time and effort, as well as enhance a safer working environment too. And one of the concerns that we had when we started this project was Big Brother. And we have tried to be as transparent as possible using this technology. And the health and safety element helps de-risk it, as well as the gamification element as well. But the technology doesn't work if the colleagues don't bring in the gamers. Now, let's move to the production hall. In our production hall, there is a significant amount of technology being used, because that's where most of our emissions occur. Okay, so in our production hall, again, through the real-time locational system, we can track assets such as the floor machine. If we know where the floor machine is and we know what its footprint is, we know which areas of the factory are being cleaned with it or being missed, and how frequently that happens as well. We're able to, once again, we can track processes as well. We know which production line an operator was working on, what products they produced, how much energy was produced, what was the embedded carbon in all the ingredients that used, and a host of other KPIs as well. And through doing this, we can incentivize our staff through the gamification to focus on consistent performance in a sustainable way. Through the integration of technology, we're able to have dynamic real-time performance metrics, including CO2e, which is given to the operators or the managers that are running that area or that line. And that allows for real-time feedback as well. And for things like energy and food waste performance per line, per team, per shift. Through the technology, we can do management by exception as well. And the full integration of digital apps, such as the OE system and the other manufacturer apps, allow us to do push notifications for critical issues, such as runtime alerts as well. And the KPIs are bespoke, and they can be bespoke to the individual line, the team, or the shift again as well. Our ability to track waste per line and the embedded carbon in it. We have the AI that's tracking for slips, trips, and falls, the compliance tracking for hand washing or for clean downs. And this is all generating a very rich dynamic data source, which we then apply smart analytic tools. Because although the game is focused on generating efficiencies, it needs consistency. And by allowing us to work in real time, gives us the opportunity to prevent problems before they start growing into major problems. And any disruption to our manufacturing process, any changes to the manufacturing plan generates additional costs and different emission and additional emissions as well. And we can mitigate that. One of my favorite bits of this project was the camera you saw at the end of the video. We have an AI that's being trained through machine learning. And through a system of inference, every single product that exits that conveyor has a photograph taken, and it checks for the product name and the product durability and compares it with what's being made on the line. And if there's any deviation, the line stops and the push notifications goes out. And this allows us to deal with and mitigate the risk of a potential recall, withdrawal, or even just a rework. Those three things in themselves generate a lot of additional costs and additional waste. And we were able to automate that. The AI doesn't take a break. It doesn't take holidays. It will consistently look and scan every single product as it comes off the production floor and help us maintain our systems. Now, by tagging the assets also gives us an actual availability of assets. You saw a food trolley there. The food trolley cannot be out of the work in progress room, which is chilled below 5 degrees Celsius, for more than 20 minutes. Through the tagging of the asset, we can understand how long that trolley's been out. We can send push notifications if it's coming up to 10 or 15 minutes. Because if the product is left, if the ingredients are left out of the refrigerated space, after 20 minutes, they need to go in the bin. And we need to prevent that. In totality, the technology that we've deployed is really inconspicuous, as you saw from the videos. And they're deployed in a high care setting. They have a very small footprint, and they've been hygienically designed, an IP of 65, and they have been built and specified for use in food manufacturing. Now, we're going to follow Bob to the goods out fridge, where our products are picked and packed. So the goods out fridge, where the operators pick and pack our customer orders, have also been gamified and integrated with the voice picking solution. Previously, they had a clipboard and a pen, and they had to put down that clip and pen frequently to pick up product, pull it into the customer boxes, pallets or trays. It was very inefficient, very liable for mistakes, and a very, very slow process. Now there's a voice picking system which is voice activated. This ensures the correct orders go into the correct consignments, and this reduces the risk of reruns, i.e. having to quickly produce more product and ship it off to the customer on the day, which always results in additional costs and additional emissions as well. It seems an absolute waste having to drive having to deliver 20 BLT up to Manchester because they've been missed off an order, but it has happened in the past. Through the integration of this, we've heavily improved our pick rate and our pick rate efficiency. Through the geolocation of operators, we know who packed which order, when did they did, where they did. We have full packaging traceability per box, per tray, or even per pallet. And once again, we can do bespoke and evolving KPIs based on different teams and shifts as well. Poor performance is very easy to identify and to retrain. And the dashboards you saw are dynamic, and they're given real-time performance to each one of those operators. And this helps deliver a very highly motivated, gamified team that wants to excel, and it wants to keep on trying to smash those records. And the game allows them to do that because it rewards them for the input and their efforts that they've had. Now, Bob's finished for the day, and he's just going to finish his shift. Okay, so Bob's finished for the day. The real-time locational system knows he's left the building. And it automatically calculates his time and attendance. And it's also important for health and safety for fire evacuation that we know a staff member has left through the automated integrated door entry system. Now, Bob goes home. Maybe he decides to go to the pub to go and see his friends, or sits home on the sofa. He opens up his gaming app or his Xanadu app, and you can see what performance he had, what scores, what points he won, where he could score better in the morning, and he gets performance insights so he can use the learnings of yesterday to improve tomorrow. In totality, this helps us embed meaningful change. If the staff are happy, the business is happy, and the planet is happy. And as you can see on the bottom, look at that list of all those tokens, all those benefits that technology is delivering to every single facet of our enterprise. Now, I'd just like to summarize the USPs in the technology that you've seen. As you can see, this is a very scalable solution. It's absolutely fully configurable and highly adaptable. It's dynamic, and it gives us near real-time performance metrics to the people that matter, to the factory floor. It allows us to manage by exception. The gamification is not compulsory, but it's a brilliant enabler. And the real-time locational system is the foundation of our system, but our system's also modular. A different food manufacturer, they could select the real-time locational system, but they only may want the auto time and attendance and the door entry system. And that's okay. The system allows that. Whether another factory may wish to have the gaming app, the AI insights, the integration, the ERP modification, it's horses for courses. This technology is highly configurable and scalable. And it's discrete. The technology has been future-proof. The dataverse, which is where all the data sits, we've made sure it's AI enabled by the design of it, because we know the future, and the future is in AI deployments and further insights that have been gorged from looking at this wealth of data. The installations are very low disruption and discrete. I didn't have to shut down my factory for the day to install it. It was done out of production times. Most importantly, it makes CO2e visible to the workforce. It shows the hotspots. And if you hotspots of CO2, you have opportunities to reduce cost. And importantly for our customers, it makes scopes 1, 2, and 3 reportable. For every consignment of goods, I can provide the embedded carbon, and they can have reports of how much embedded carbon they've had from the year, down to every consignment, even down to every sandwich as well. Now I'm going to share with you some headline achievements from the project. The project formally concluded at the end of January, but the game's still running and we're still making excellent progress. So we have achieved a 50% reduction in our total energy and emissions throughout the whole of that process. We're now tracking around 17%. Through the energy savings, we've managed to decarbonise 34 tonnes. Through the whole gamification programme, we've decarbonised 330 tonnes. We're producing savings of up to £50,000 a month. Although the business has grown substantially within the project, we've stabilised our energy. And as an example of this, our baseline energy, which is the energy being used when we're not producing anything, has been reduced from 81% to 65%. And we've still got further that we can do through the deployment of the AI and the insights it's provided us. As an example of that, our production room. If we're not producing anything, why are we still keeping that room cold? And that's an example of one of the areas we've managed to save quite a lot of energy on. We've generated labour efficiencies. We've significantly reduced the overproduction, and as well as the associated food waste with that. We've increased our picking accuracy and our throughput, and we've managed to significantly reduce our time and attendance costs as well. And an excellent win, we've got a 95% game link utilisation. So 95% of our colleagues are using the Xanadu gaming app every single day. And we're paying out prizes every quarter as well, as we're decarbonising. Now, the technology we've developed is now commercially available. And if you'd like to trial this technology in your workplace, or you want any further information, then please drop me an email and we can have a conversation. And we're happy to support a trial in your workplace. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for a really interesting, see some reactions going up there. Really good reactions, I hasten to add. But thank you for such an interesting and engaging talk. I was getting a bit jittery because we're getting quite close to 1 o'clock. But I wanted to keep you going because it was clearly relevant, applied, and really interesting. And we do have quite a few questions. I can probably answer a couple of questions at the front end from a guy called Bob, who's actually on an extra day's holiday, but he's dutifully signed into the webinar. He was asking about visits that you referred to. There will be visits later in the year, potentially open to IFST members. And he also mentioned recording. And of course, the recording is going to go up on the IFST site. But there have been some real humdinger questions here, potentially quite tough ones, Tom, that I know that you've struggled over in the S3 project. And it's from an anonymous questioner, but it's a really good question. Does all these processes eliminate the value of emotional intelligence in the game?
No, I don't think so. Bear in mind that the incentivizations come from the workforce. The technology is just an enabler for us to help evolve our culture, a decarbonising culture moving forward. It still requires the people. It doesn't work without the people. It's just created a tool for us to better communicate what's meaningful to the workforce and to reward them for the interventions and the efforts that they make in a fair manner.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer, and I know it's one that many gamification programs struggle with when we automate and digitalize. We have another question from John Point, and again, I think it's one that you've mulled over quite a lot. But John makes the point that different roles within the factory might have different kind of efforts associated with the reward of points. So, How do you account for that? How do you normalise across roles and functions within the factory?
That's a really good question, John. So just to be really clear and transparent, the UK funding was to only decarbonise what happens in the manufacturing hall, the manufacturing space. It was out of scope, the office functions, the logistic functions, and things like that. But you make a very good point. Um, I think that there are some office functions that can, in the long term, significantly reduce the emissions, especially the scope 3 emissions coming into the factory. Now, in terms of keeping the game fair, that was a very, very important part of this. If you work in the goods in space, you equally can earn the same points as people that work in the manufacturing hall. And the game was designed with that in mind. So any part within the manufacturing space, as you saw as Bob walked around our factory, any area, room, location, you can score similar points to somebody working in a different space. And then we've made universal KPIs for the business. Universal KPI could be the kilowatt hour per sandwich, the waste per sandwich, the water per sandwich, and even the throughput per sandwich as well, because everyone's got a responsibility for that. Everyone's got a part to play, even if it's the quality team making sure the raw materials delivered are correct, the procurement team ordering the right amount, and even the transport team backhauling some of our ingredients as well.
Okay, fantastic. Daria Luta-Serino has got quite an upvoted question here, Tom. So Daria's got a really good question. You may be able to answer some of it, you may not. But Daria's asking, what's the most challenging thing? You know, where were the most mistakes happening? If you like, what was the hot spots for things that were potentially going wrong that are potentially going right because of the game and so on? And she also asked the really difficult question of essentially, how much will this cost? But you may not be able to answer that yet.
Yeah, that Darius, a really good question. What was the most challenging? Before we started the project, my main concern was Big Brother. That was my chief concern. Would people want to carry a game link or a tag? You want to call it a tag? Would they like to be monitored? And to de-risk that, we started off being very, very transparent from the beginning. We told people what the tech could do, what it couldn't do. People had concerns. Could it record their conversations? Could it work outside of the business? Does it let off any harmful radiation or radio signals? And there was a host of other concerns. And we addressed them as and when they came up. We had a number of one-to-one interviews, workshops, small groups, one-to-ones, to try and communicate what we were trying to do and how they had a role in delivering it. I think some of the most challenging ones was trying to keep the scoring fair so people could earn the same points in different areas as well. And I think communication was a key challenge as well. We had a communications officer whose job was to go around and helping to be the interface because the project moved very, very quickly. As our monitoring officer said to us, you were effectively building a plane whilst you were flying it at the same time. And I think that's quite true. In terms of the cost, it will not cost what it cost the project. We made a lot of mistakes. We had a lot of learnings. We effectively took a bulldozer through the jungle. It really depends on your deployment and what you are trying to achieve. Happy to speak to you afterwards, but I can't give you a steer on cost because it really depends on the process and actually what suite of stuff you want. You know, do you just want the gamification and the real-time locational system? Or would you like everything? And it really depends on the problems that you're trying to solve and the process that you have as well.
Okay, Tom, we've got other questions. And I guess the key thing that you've made to the point to me is that this is implemented essentially in an SME. So, you know, the huge costs that are typically quoted for digital twins and so on are almost blown apart really because of what you've done in an SME and made it relevant to SMEs. I think that's
No,
an important point.
Wayne, I think you're absolutely. I think key thing. Yes, the end solution that we developed is aimed at SMEs, is aimed at the SMEs, and every single time we came to a decision, how can we decost this? How can we make it cheaper, easier, and simpler for other people to have this technology? And you might actually be surprised by the cost.
Okay.
As I said, we made a lot of mistakes along the way.
Okay. The webinar will go up on the IFST site. I reiterate that Tom has given a really fantastic, interesting, engaging talk, and kind of blown away a lot of myth and mystery around gamification and AI and decarbonisation in factories and manufacturing. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, the Northern Branch, for organising this webinar. Thank you for giving up your time and attending. It doesn't work without attendees. We didn't lose any attendees during the talk, so I'm assuming that it was especially interesting and useful. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. There will be a questionnaire at the end. Please fill in the questionnaire. We're a membership organisation. Your views are of immense value to us. And I would just reiterate that please, if you have ever thought about becoming a member of a committee, a SIG, a chair of a committee, a vice chair of a committee, or even a trustee for the Institute for Food Science and Technology, please speak to me or another trustee or any other fellow or member. It is hard work, but you're joining a community of really established people, and it's a wonderful thing to do in my own experience. So I'll leave it with that. But thank you, Tom. Goodbye to everyone. Thank you for turning up. Fantastic talk, and hope to see you again. Thank you.